you have to be agile in this landscape. And, one of the adages that I like to use is, you're building that rocket ship as you fly in a lot of instances. So there's no real precedent to look back on. But, I would say challenges to licensed producers getting products into dispensaries. In Canada, the Cannabis Act is actually a federal law, but the provinces make their own individual regulations. So for like a micro grow or for a smaller producer, that can be pretty challenging depending what province you're looking on going into.
The view from across the counter. Rebecca Crewe, Director of Sales at Calgary-based marketing and growth agency Maggie Jane, has worked in cannabis retail as a buyer, vendor and sales consultant. But even in Canada, where the recreational market stretches from Nanaimo to Newfoundland, understanding what makes dispensary owners tick is just as crucial as consumer insight.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Lobsterpot podcast. I'm Dave Barton and this man is Jamie, what is it again? Bonthron.
We're going for Bonthron.
We're going for Bonthron this time.
I'll take that.
We'll take that. How you doing? You all right?
Yeah, I'm good. I mean, total faux pas. We're not supposed to date the podcast, so we shouldn't say when we're recording, but it is the 22nd of December. Are you familiar with Christmas Steve? Christmas Steve is the day before Christmas Eve. So technically, It's the Christmas Eve of Christmas Steve. And that's all I've been thinking about all day.
Christmas Eve Steve.
Eve Steve. It's a great way to lose someone.
Yeah, I'm lost, but I'm lost for words for once, which is quite good. But more about that, I think I'm gonna have to go sort of fall down a Christmas Steve kind of rabbit hole in a bit and see how that happens. Which sounds sounds quite involved, doesn't it? But there we go. But in other news, we have a special guest today, Rebecca Crewe, who is Director of Sales at Calgary, Alberta, Canada-based marketing agency Maggie Jane Marketing. How are you doing, Rebecca? Good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I'm doing great. Sorry, guys. Fantastic. I love your Christmas Steve. In Newfoundland, where I'm from originally, we call it Tibbs Eve, which is, mummering, all that good stuff.
Oh, do you know they made a horror movie about the mummers?
No way, I did not.
It was this guy who basically, I think he was born abroad and then he came to live in Newfoundland as a kid. And just the whole concept around mumming scared the crap out of him. So when he grew up, became a film director. It's called like Allowed In or something, because there's that saying, isn't it? Any mummers allowed in. So when they come around,
I'm gonna have to check that out this year.
Yeah, I've never watched it, but anyway, enough about the mummering, and well, it's a very seasonal thing. But we're not dating it. But tell us a little about yourself, because from Newfoundland, now based in Calgary, doing sales, marketing, but you've been in cannabis for quite a while, haven't you? Tell us a little about your potted history of the Rebecca-ness today.
Oh, well, great question. It's pretty loaded. My involvement in cannabis, of course, came from the legacy market. What I didn't know at the time was that I was self-medicating for a lot of things that we now know are helpful for, and I know that I'm in good company there. So started there, and then, of course, went to university. I actually lived in the UK for a little while, and then moved to Calgary. And since moving to Calgary, I was in banking. That was my original career. So what I've done is I've taken all of my banking experience with sales, leadership, execution, operations, that sort of thing, and really translated it nicely to the cannabis space. So what I've done is I've opened retail stores and run retail stores in Alberta. I was the director for Western Canada for a very prominent LP here by a marketing agency. So I got to see a lot about what works and what is not working so much in this space. But yeah, the plant, the culture, everything, that's my passion. Since leaving banking, I haven't really looked back.
And it's so cool, but it's kind of your kind of role, you've really kind of been that sort of go-between sort of licensed, LPs, licensed producers, and the kind of dispensary, so the retailers. Is that kind of the sort of space where you sort of thrive, if you like?
Yes. Well, honestly, anything in sales, I thrive, because that's what I do. really networking, getting to know people and what their pain points are, and seeing if there's something that we can better or help them be successful. Because one of the things that I really believe is a strong cannabis community is going to create a very strong cannabis industry for everybody. So really being able to identify some of those gaps, whether it's at the dispensary or if it's in field sales, telemarketing, that sort of execution, or even, product education, if you will.
Absolutely. Hugely important.
Product education, that's in my...
Yeah. Sorry, I'm getting.
I think we're getting.
I think it's my the sort of the lag. I'm doing the whole kind of oddly dubbed thing where I sort of speak and then. Anyway, it's cool. Sorry. So I was just going to ask you, in terms of some of those challenges, I know it will kind of differ between businesses, but in terms of kind of licensed producers getting their products into dispensaries, what are some of the big challenges they face there? Because again, if it's quite a competitive market, and it is, isn't it?
Definitely. It's you have to be agile in this landscape. And, one of the adages that I like to use is, you're building that rocket ship as you fly in a lot of instances. So there's no real precedent to look back on. But, I would say challenges to licensed producers getting products into dispensaries. In Canada, the Cannabis Act is actually a federal law, but the provinces make their own individual regulations. So for a micro grow or for a smaller producer, that can be pretty challenging depending what province you're looking on going into. For example, in BC, my field sales team, they had to build relationships with buyers and really have a grassroots movement to get our listings into the province. So you got to get real creative and not be afraid to go in and ask for them to do that. So what the retailers would have to do is email the government asking for our products. So then we could get it listed in the province. So that's a huge part. Yeah. Dispensaries and LPs alike. And then, there's a lot of cash flow management issues. I know that's a big piece for dispensaries. It's investment isn't so much the issue, I would say, as it was in previous years. Not to say that it's not there at all, but it's about spending with purpose. I've seen a lot of money used in a lot of fun ways, but not necessarily generating that return on investment that most producers are looking for. So, and also another challenge, if I may add in one more, is the market saturation. If you're going into this market right now, you really have to know your purpose and know what gap you're filling in right now, because you take a look at a category like vape cartridges, well, you're almost tripping over yourself in vape cartridges when you enter any dispensary. So there's quite a few different challenges for producers getting into those spaces.
It's cool. So it's kind of it's obviously very different from the US in, you have effective, nationwide federal legalization, for want of a better term. But it's also down to the individual provinces how they manage the kind of cannabis, because isn't it in Ontario, they have the OCS, don't they, which is the cannabis.
That's right.
So they sort of regulate it, and do they control the sales in that respect as well? Is that kind of similar how it goes, or you have to buy it from a cannabis store that's owned by the province, or they have to have a relationship with the provincial? Getting tripped up on the legislation.
Yeah, it's a bit of everything, to be honest with you. I mean, OCS and the AGCO, OCS is just their online store. The regulator, for example, AGLC in Alberta, they determine what listings, so what producers are permitted to sell in the province. Same thing in British Columbia. Although BC recently went to direct sale, but I do believe they're still going to have an influence on that. So it's almost like at these provincial boards, there's gatekeepers as to how product can get in the market. Then also some provinces have rules around, if your certain product or SKU, it must sell this number of cases every single month. If not, you're risking being delisted. So then you're no longer available in that province. Now, what I have seen is a lot of provinces have started going in the direction of Saskatchewan, where they are direct order. Manitoba does have a bit of a direct order model as well. But also in Saskatchewan, there's a wholesale model as well, where it's privately wholesaled. So it's, like I said, bulk of my experiences in Western Canada, and to say that it's the wild, wild west is probably an understatement.
Okay, well, that's cool though. But again, it's just, unlike in the US, where basically, if you have to grow and sell in the state that you operate in, and if you want to open another state, if you want to be a multi-state operator, you have to kind of basically open a new business in the state where it's legal. And that's not the case in Canada. If you grow it in Newfoundland, you can sell it in BC, you can sell it in Yukon, wherever you want, kind of thing. There's no restriction in that in the way there is in the US.
No, there's no restriction in that regard, but what the restriction, if you will, is if that board member, that gatekeeper in that province decides, no, we have enough high potency sativas in the market right now. So no, we're not going to take that SKU, but we're really interested in these infused pre-rolls that you have. So they can pick and choose what they allow into the province. So without the producer having to have a grow there. Although some provinces, they do prefer to have predominantly their own homegrown cannabis. I've heard in certain circles, it's a little bit easier if you are a BC producer to get your product to market in BC than such as the organization I was working with previously, where we had to really go grassroots to get our listings there.
It sounds like a genuine struggle in its own right. People talking about the fact that it's easy in Canada because it's federally legal, and it's like that's absolutely not the case. It has its own complexities in working in that space. It's sounds like a minefield for sure.
It can be sometimes, but at the end of the day, we're all just grateful that it's legalized coast to coast. And I mean, I can get on a plane and fly coast to coast with 30 grams of cannabis on my person, and that's cool. That's fine. I mean, the last time I got stopped and searched at an airport was in Winnipeg, and it was because I left my orange juice in my bag next to my 3.5 grams of weed. So I'll pick and choose my battles sometimes.
I'll take the orange juice. Absolutely. Yeah. There are definitely some benefits to federal legalization. I mean, talking about sales generally, we did a podcast a little while ago speaking to Brian Roth at Elevated Signals. They're based in Vancouver. He's based in California, but they're based in Vancouver. And it's always interesting to speak to people who have to sell for a living. It's something that a lot of people don't have a lot of experience in or understanding of, apart from being sold to. And generally, the experiences that people remember are the bad ones, unfortunately, because they usually stand out. What are some of the I suppose, the things that salespeople are getting wrong when they're going into dispensaries and trying to, ship product? What are they doing wrong? Is it technology based? Is it the patter? What is it? Is it lots of things?
First, let me say there are a lot of talented and skilled field sales reps out in the country, and it's been a joy to get to know them. However, yes, when I was in retail management and I was on the other side of the counter having folks come in, there were reps that either stood out for a very good reason or a very bad reason. So if you're talking about faux pas, I mean, one of the things that I would see the most is a rep would come in and engage a bud tender, engage myself, and be completely not cognizant of the fact that we have 10 people in a lineup all waiting for their weed on a Friday night. So don't want to talk to you right now because we're making money. So just being conscientious of the business, and we're a business, we're looking to earn our way as well. And then professionalism. I find that I've had reps come into my store in the summertime with flip-flops on. At the end of the day, this is a business. If you want to be perceived as a professional and taken seriously, I mean, I'm not saying you have to go out and get suited and booted. I did that in banking long enough. But at the same time, show up in every way, because at the end of the day, when you're going into somebody's dispensary, customers don't know that you're not an employee of that dispensary. So then it reflects poorly on that dispensary. So I've seen that. And then if I could give a tip as to sales strategy, if there's reps coming in, it would be get good at asking great discovery questions about their location. Because what I saw a lot of reps do is just vomit product information at you that was not relevant, and you left and there was no impression left for myself or my bud tenders or cannabis educators to then, emulate or get that information. And that could have been product that was sitting on our shelves. So really teaching not just about the product, but why it's relevant to that location and how to sell it.
No, massively. I mean, it's a nightmare if you're crafting brand, you're working in marketing, and you've got reps out there who are just spurting kind of features and numbers. It's like, come on, like, what's the purpose? Why should this be important to a customer? Why should this be pushed? Why is this product valuable? These are the things that you really want sales reps out there. Kind of, that's the stuff you want people talking about, and that's how you have conversations. Just, shouting about terpene profiles and THC percentages is, it's so basic that it's just not gonna shift product, especially in a really competitive environment. You sort of touched on, that competition that brands face when they're in a dispensary. What are some of the ways that salespeople kind of push products to get them to stand out? We've all heard the thing when, sales rep comes in with a goodie bag, tries to charm, tries to bribe a little bit. What are some of the ways that they can really, get product over the line and get it moving once it is in the store?
Honestly, provide that value. Where is it going to fit in my business? Because at the end of the day, I ran 3 different locations at the same time, and each location had a different demographic, a different psychographic. Like it really dictated, like one store was all edibles all the time, like could not keep it in stock. The other store was like vapes all the time. So when you're able to like pivot between those products, it will make you a lot stronger when you're on the sales floor. But sorry, I got tangent there. I'm like, yeah, all these people. What was the question again?
No, it's just about what's really gonna tip the balance when it comes to making the sale. What is going to tip the balance? Yes. We spoke about brand, and we've spoken about the quality of the product. But what's that personal connection? Where's that engagement?
Yes, this is where I'm going with it. It's like, come in and ask me really good questions, because if I had to have been at one of my stores that was great with vapes, I would be telling you all about vapes. So then that salesperson can pivot and say, okay, these guys like concentrates, they like vape products. What is in my repertoire or portfolio that I can fill in here? Then also partner with them. Ask, don't be shy. Say, you know what? If you bring in so many cases, how about I come and do a pop-up for you next Friday night? Should I follow up with you on Wednesday or Thursday? Like, what does that look like? Don't be afraid to ask, because also a lot of retailers, they would appreciate that help on the floor. You'd appreciate that sale. But if nobody takes the initiative to ask or even set up a product knowledge session, salespeople, you're there for a purpose. Don't be afraid to ask.
And that's that point of differentiation as well. So few people are going to take the initiative and do things that are outside of what they think, the constraints of their role are. It takes that person who's willing to go, yeah, I'm going to do a pop-up for a day. Why not? If nothing else, I'll learn a lot about customers. I'll learn how a product goes down really, like in the field. Absolutely. It's interesting to see. What's your sort of experience in the US in terms of dispensaries? And do you think there's any kind of marked difference between the way things happen there versus in Canada? Put you on the spot a little bit with that.
Oh, gosh, no worries. I mean, I've had this discussion many times with many people, because I've been very fortunate to spend a lot of time in Nevada, all over California, particularly Southern California and Washington as well. The one thing that comes to mind is, what I think the US market is doing really well is innovation of product, definitely across the board. And like their people are so, every time I've gone into a dispensary they're so like, okay, let's get you this. Like, oh, and because you're getting all of this stuff, I'm going to give you a discount. I'm going to throw these joints at you. You're not allowed to do that in Canada. right? It's fun, it's exciting, it's entertaining, it's great to go in there. The one thing that kind of puts people off from going to some, or Canadians that I've spoken to about going into dispensaries in the US, is around going in and you got your security guard right there. Where's your passport? Where's your ID? And that can be, as friendly as they are sometimes, that can be really intimidating, especially to your legacy stoners. So I can understand how that might make people feel a little bit uncomfortable at first. But at the end of the day, what Canada's changed as well that's really great is transparency. Like, you can now see into cannabis stores from the parking lot. Whereas I know in some of the states as well, you got your security guy, your ID checker behind glass, and then you're going behind a door. We're not doing anything illicit, right? We're at a legal store. You know, you don't see that at liquor stores. In fact, as I recall in the UK, I'd go to Tesco to pick up my wine on Fridays.
100%, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, we know you're classy now. If you're going to Tesco to pick up your wine, that's not even down the long list. I love it. That's great.
I should have just said M&S, so I would sound fancier than I am. But really,
we wouldn't have bought it. It's fine. Don't worry.
I know.
No, I think that's a really good point. It's something we've experienced. You know, we when we went into a dispensary in Vegas, it was very much like that. You know, you've got your guard on the front, and it just feels like a very strange experience to go and buy something that's legal, and yet to be presented with that. It's a strange kind of dichotomy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do wonder if it's because of payment options and how that came about. Like, the banker in me starts wondering, because I remember when Colorado first legalized, there was a special on CNN and they were talking about they could only take cash. So that might have played a part. But last couple times I've been down there over the last few years, I've paid with credit card every time. So
really? Okay. I was going to say, is it? It's meant to be. I know there are ways around it. I mean, we're speaking to a company who, you know, there are payment technologies where you can trick the payment provider into thinking it's an ATM or something like that, and there are things, technologies like that exist. But is it? It's not. Is it just cash only? It's not cash only in Canada. You can pay by card.
Oh goodness, no.
So you don't have that. No. You don't have that issue at all in terms of, like, you know, you don't. Because again, the whole security thing, as you were sort of saying, it's like, you know, you've got probably a couple of million in cash sitting in each dispensary or something like that, potentially in somewhere like Las Vegas. And it's like, well, damn it, if they didn't have security, well, even they do, they, you know, a lot of places, you know, they're serious risk, aren't they, of, you know, being robbed, not just for the cash, but for product or both, you know, and that's a scary thing. And I suppose, again, safe banking, etc., would be a real game changer for the US. But I mean, in Canada, are there similar challenges regarding finance? I guess, in terms of, right, you mentioned about raising capital, or, you know, in a broader sense, how does that, and banking, obviously, that's very much your sort of wheelhouse too. What's the kind of, is it treated like any other business in Canada, or are there kind of like caveats around running a cannabis dispensary?
Business. Any sort of cannabis related business, at the end of the day, there's going to be a lot more anti-money laundering and terrorist financing paperwork that's going to go with that. That's just a reality. Now, when it comes to appetites of banking organizations wanting to have these kinds of clients, not these kinds of clients, I don't mean it like that, but having cannabis related industry clients, ATB in Alberta, which is a provincial bank, they started opening up accounts for cannabis organizations. Now there's another organization right now in Canada. I know BMO, they're very cannabis friendly. In fact, they just had a posting in Toronto for their first cannabis focused lender. So we are seeing that dial move, especially seeing as of last year, I believe we were at $43.5 billion industry in Canada. You know, any banker, they're going to be like, ooh, I want a piece of that pie. So I can see that that BMO is definitely going to be a leader with the big five. Now, I'm not sure if any of the other ones are, but I know that when I was with another organization, it was just, we don't have the appetite for that kind of risk right now. And I can see a lot of other banks feeling that way. And they have to think of their shareholders and all of that good stuff. But at the end of the day, you know, I really feel that the banks that aren't getting on board with this industry are really missing out, because yes, we may enjoy cannabis, but we are really great at business too.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the number itself on the size of the market says, all you need to know. But as you say, it's when it comes to the banks, it isn't, strangely, or you might think it is, it's not just a case of the numbers, it's all the surrounding kind of pressures, societal, stigma, stakeholders, all the usual kind of stuff that goes hand in hand with cannabis, unfortunately. I think we've darted here, there, and everywhere and covered a whole bunch in about 25 minutes. Thank you for letting us pick your brain. Just before we kind of go, what are you looking forward to in 2023?
Oh, in 2023, well, I'm so excited because the team here at Maggie Jane, we are going to be kicking off Lift in January, first thing. So that's a great way to start the new year. We're hosting some bee lounges there with the Bud Tenders Association. So super pumped about that. I also get to connect with some of my old staff that I had from previous roles, which is always really nice. That's what I love about the cannabis community. You just work with somebody or speak with somebody, and it's almost like you're connected for life here. So really looking forward to that, and then just continuing to go upwards and onwards with Maggie Jane.
Brilliant. Rebecca, it was a genuine pleasure speaking to you. Thank you very much for your time.
Likewise. Take care, guys.